Hey everyone! If you're new here, thanks for checking me out. And if you've watched my videos before, thanks for coming back. Today we're going to make the 40K Sway Top by George and Ginger. I'm using this rib knit I got from Rocker by Fabrics. If you want to see the rest of the fabrics I just got in with this, check out the linked video in the cards. And if you want to see me sew it up, stick around. Here we have all of our required pieces. We have our front bodice with the shoulder piece, our back bodice, our two sleeves, two cuffs, neckband, and the binding. So we're going to put everything aside and work on the bodice first. And step one is to match up your shoulder seam, right sides together. The seam allowance for this pattern is 1/4 of an inch. So you're going to sew that shoulder seam. Now step two is to match up these shoulder seams. So I'm just going to sew both of those in one shot. Okay, so sew those up with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and meet me back here. Okay, next step is to grab your neckband and press it in half. I'm just going to skip that, even though I normally do that, but I have so much junk on my ironing board, honestly. Not even going to try to lie. So fold your neckband in half, and then what you're going to do is find the center of it and mark that. And then you're also going to mark either end of this with a pin. This would be definitely easier if it was pressed because it would stay together. So I do recommend not skipping that step. Okay, so you mark either end as well. And then what you're going to do is you're going to match this up to your bodice. So your center is going to go, it's going to match to the shoulder seam that is not free, I guess. So the first seam that you sewed. Okay, and then your other ends are just going to match to the ends of the bodice. Alright, and then once you have that pinned, you're going to sew that on with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, stretching it to fit, stretching the neckband to fit onto the bodice. So here we have that sewn on. It wraps all the way around. Next step says to finish this curve right here with a serger or a zigzag stitch, because then you're going to kind of overlap it somewhere over here. So I'm just going to go really quick and finish that edge with my serger. Okay, so I'm back. So I went ahead and just finished the edge of that with my serger. And now it says to place these bodices right sides together. And what you're going to do is you're going to line this up just naturally how it would sit on there. And you're going to sew that on just to the seam allowance. So just make sure you're not catching anything extra there. You're only sewing that to the seam allowance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this. I am going to use some Wash Away Wonder Tape. If you haven't used this before, it is wonderful. It's great for holding things that are tricky to pin or things that maybe you need extra hold on. And it just washes away the first time you wash your garment. So I definitely suggest grabbing some. This is a like imitation brand, just from Amazon. I got 3 rolls of it for pretty cheap, and it works just as well. So all right, so let's see. I'm going to put a little bit more. So basically this is just double-sided. You stick it on and then pull off the white backing to reveal the stickiness on the other side. Okay. And so I'm just going to line this up with the seam allowance. Press that really firmly. And now what I am going to go ahead and do, you can see this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and top stitch all the way around the entire neckband with my cover stitch. If you don't have a cover stitch, you can use a twin needle, a stretch stitch, anything like that. But basically that top stitching is both going to secure this shoulder in place and also keep the seam allowance down on the rest of the neckband. So I'm going to go ahead and top stitch that. I'll be right back. Okay, so I went ahead and top stitched it. So I started here, and once again I went all the way around, and what I did was, hopefully this is in focus, I just continued down just to kind of hold this in place. It's probably not necessary, but I did it anyway. And I have some waviness here, so I'm thinking I might have overstretched my neckband just a little bit. I'm hoping that if I press that with some steam that will kind of flatten out, but if it doesn't, whatever. Okay, so the next step in the tutorial talks about doing a functional placket. So you can have this unbutton for like nursing and stuff. I, just did the faux placket. But the functional placket uses the binding piece. So if you're making the faux placket, I don't think you need the binding. That's not even the binding, that's the cuff. This is the binding piece, the big rectangle. So I don't believe you need this if you're doing the faux placket. Okay, so next then is going to be our sleeves. So we're going to open the bodice right sides up. And once again, I do have my sleeves marked. So let's see. This one is going to go to this side. So as you've seen me do a million times, match up your center notch with your shoulder seam and then pin the rest around, and just make sure that the back of your sleeve is touching the back bodice. And sew that sleeve on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then repeat with your other sleeve. Once you have your sleeve sewn in, we are almost done. Now we're going to sew the sleeves and the side seams. So put everything right sides together. Pin down your entire sleeve and your entire side seam on both sides. And once you have those pinned, sew down both sides with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, we're almost finished. So next step is our cuffs. So off camera, I just went ahead and pressed my cuffs in half, wrong sides together. What you're going to do is unfold that and fold it right sides together so that these sort of angled edges match. Sew those up with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And do the same thing with your second cuff. All right. Once you have those, fold them in half, wrong sides together. And what I'm going to do is split this in half and also split my sleeve in half and match those half points up to attach the cuff to the sleeve. So, full transparency, as I was doing the last step when I was sewing the side seams up, I started to think, I don't know if this is going to fit me. And I tried it on, and needless to say, it didn't. So, luckily, I had enough fabric to cut out a second one, just barely. But what I did wrong was the calibration on my projector was off because I just got a new computer, and this is the first pattern I'm cutting out with my new computer on my projector. And I measured the square, the calibration square, but I don't know, my brain must have not been working because I obviously did not measure correctly. So when I went back to cut the second one, I realized, wow, I cut it way too small. So the moral of the story is, make sure to check your calibration square before cutting every single pattern on your projector. Because if I didn't have enough fabric for a second one, that would have sucked, especially since this is custom fabric and it's more expensive. But luckily I did, and luckily this shirt is very fast to sew up. So this is the second shirt that you're seeing here. Okay, so once you have your cuffs pinned on, then just sew around those with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we'll have one more step when we get back. Okay, so our cuffs are sewn on. Last step is hemming. So before I sewed the side seams up on this second shirt, I did press a memory hem in. I forgot to do that with the first one, and I didn't say that earlier. So, if you're watching this full video before you sew it up, you can choose to press a memory hem in before you sew the side seams. It just makes hemming a lot easier. The hem for this shirt is 1 inch, but I chose to just do a 1/2 inch because I do like my shirts a little bit longer. So all you're going to do is just fold up the hem and then go ahead and sew that up with either a stretch stitch, a twin needle, or a cover stitch. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll be right back. Okay, we're finished. Love how it turned out. I am going to press this neckline with a good amount of steam in hopes that that waviness will come out. We'll see. That's it. I have our hem here on the bottom. I'm just going to finish my threads with fray check, and then I'll be finished. I definitely encourage you to give this shirt a try, especially if you're a beginner. It has this unique neckline that looks complicated, but it's actually really easy, and the shirt comes together so fast. So definitely give it a try. Thanks so much for sewing along with me. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you'd like to see me sew up next. And as always, thanks for watching.